What a beautiful life I'm in.
All that I've got is all that I need. I got you, baby, you got me. What more could I ask for? Beautiful life.
We got
Beautiful life.
Welcome. This is your boy, the Real Charlemagne from the Brick City. Today we have a special show today. It's Autism Month. Have a parent that's very, very active in his kid's life. We're going to get to him in a minute. But for now, I want to shout out my sponsors, That's Good Chocolate, that'sgoodchocolate.com. Pay attention to her website. She got some good holiday specials coming up for Mother's Day. Mother's Day is around the corner. Definitely want to miss Mother's Day, people, because that's going to be, you miss Mother's Day, hey. You know, you might not go get that upside down cake for the holidays that you used to get. Also, want to shout out Second Chances Family Care Provider. Their number is 252-916-2953. They're in Greenville, North Carolina. Provide services, all type of spectrums, from the elderly to disabilities as well. So feel free to give them a holler. They'll and support the businesses, supporting local businesses at all possible. All right. The man of the hour, Mr. Ken. Been knowing this guy a few years. The boys used to play soccer together since they could barely walk.
That tall.
Hey Ken, how you doing over there?
Hey,
Introduce yourself.
Hey, brother. Good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for being on your show.
Yeah. Thanks. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, everybody, my name is Ken Robol. I have known the host for too long. Basically, we won't talk about that. I am a professor by trade and teach information technology at a college called Vance Granville. Have three sons. Alex is 26 and moved out, and Zach is 22 and moved out, and my youngest is Jackson and 17. And it's totally awesome, but we're not here to talk about this, about how great it is when the kids move out. But it has been great. And my youngest son has autism. He was diagnosed when he was about 4. And so I hope I can provide some perspective on having a child on the spectrum and what it means for parents, especially for new parents, because it was a shock many years ago when my wife and I found out.
Right. I think that's a lot of the issue with parents. Can you tell us a little bit about that conversation with the doctor once the diagnosis was established, and once he was saying, hey, your child has autism?
Well, and this was probably going on about 12 to 13 years ago. And I mean, we were at first, we didn't know what it was. And you think about it now, I mean, everything it's podcasting, everything is video driven. 10 years ago, that stuff was just, coming out. So, I'll never forget, my wife found out when we were living in a town called Roanoke Rapids, and she called me, and I was on the road. And so, cried a little bit, and,
Right.
pulled over and started, trying to, find somewhere that I could Google what is autism, because at the time we didn't know.
Right.
And it was such a shock. Then you try to go through different stages of trying to figure out, well, can you cure it? And and right now you can't. And I mean, you go through so many different things trying to figure out, well, what's the next step?
Exactly.
And that's the biggest challenge, because at the time, again, 10, 15 years ago, there weren't many support groups, there wasn't much hope. And thankfully it's going in a better place. And I tell that to all parents right now, that it is a shock, and it was a shock for me, but you need a little time to digest, and then figure out a plan, and then figure out what's the next step. But it was, many years ago, because, at the end of the day, your kids are your lifeblood, and you just want what's best for him or her. You did.
Exactly. Yeah, I used to work with families years ago when I first returned from the military, um, and just understanding, just the dynamics of the day to day life of a family that has a kid with autism is just, you know, I, I applaud you guys because just the hours that I spent, just spent talking with the kid and, just working on their, goals for the day. And
Sure.
some days it's just a struggle trying to get them to come out of the home, because some days they're just like, I'm not doing anything, and it's
Yep.
like,
Yep.
and once they, and most of the time, with those kids, you have to, you have to have rewards and things to try to get them to go places. And like I said, I applaud you guys, the kids with autism. But you guys didn't let that hold you guys back. You pushed your sons, and I know I've seen, you guys interact with them. What type of things did you do at a young age to try to let him be who he is?
Well, and part of it was, you know, trying to find initially his or her own niche, and then also trying to get as much and to find out resources that are out there. It's amazing, even today, when we still will come across a lot of different young families who are just finding out the diagnosis, and at first there is a shock, but and the assumption is a lot of times too is that the states and the schools are going to be your best advocates and they're going to help you, and not all the time. I have to tell you, families, that you're your best advocate in trying to find what's best for your child. Because it was surprising, the first time that we went to what's called an IEP meeting. And first time, my wife and I are kind of just kind of sitting back, just kind of chilling, just not worrying about it. And lo and behold, we didn't realize how at the time the schools wouldn't offer us or tell us about different things that are available or different techniques that we could do.
Right.
It took us a while to realize, hey, you need to contact, the state about, this, or maybe contact, the county with social services about this. I am always surprised how many parents don't realize what's out there available for them. We have been, and we fought for it, my friend. We have been so blessed in that, we've been able to go through and make sure that Jackson has speech therapy. He did that with East Carolina. He went through, and we would be able to get services because we applied for services with the state to get workers and professionals to help work with him.
Right.
When we got the diagnosis, Jackson, was what they would call nonverbal, which is where he wouldn't talk at all.
Oh, wow.
And having to go from where we are today, which is which we'll talk a little bit about later, about where he is today to where he was, is amazing. But my first thing I would tell parents is there are services out there for you. Don't be afraid or proud or stubborn, because this is another thing. One of my big things was being a man was that I could cure it. And my kid, and just and thinking that, well, my it's not happening. It's not happening. And men are proud a lot of times, and they're stubborn, and they won't basically say, hey, it took me a while to understand the different things that we could do to benefit him. And at the end, it worked, because over the years we understood, and we would get contacted with groups and organizations that would teach us about how do you do IEPs and how do you get into contact with services. It was I have to tell you this, it was funny. Like first couple
I'm gonna pause you right there. Can you explain the IEP a little bit to some of the listeners? Because some people I've been involved with them, but could you explain a little bit to some of the listeners of what an IEP is when it comes to
Sure.
school?
Sure. It's an individual education plan. And that is, you could say, a series of goals or plans you have for your kid. So you can, with the right diagnosis, you can have the school make sure that they're following this plan. Now, the biggest challenge is that sometimes the school won't follow it. So you really have to hold them accountable. But it's a you could say it's a document done by the Department of Education that you can have for your kid to ask, for example, will he or she get pulled out for tests? Will he or she get extra time for, dealing with speech therapy? So that's one of the first things. If you're a parent, Google IEPs and understand what you can do to help your kid. It's a plan for you, because a lot of times, sometimes they will, and hopefully they will. A lot of times the schools won't tell you about this stuff if you don't push them.
Exactly. I totally agree. Because some parents, I had to gather information for them and say, hey, check this out. I couldn't do it because I didn't have a power of attorney and things of that nature. But I'm like, I would say, hey, this is a point of contact. Reach out to them, especially if you find someone that's an advocate. When you find an advocate, you want to try to keep them in your Rolodex, because
yes, sir.
Because
exactly, and finding that person, because get connected with the right organization, because some places that they're great advocates, and we even, I don't know if people realize this, that if you find the right advocate, they'll even come with you to the meetings.
Exactly.
Which is at first awesome, because it's funny. When we would go to these meetings, and if your parents go to these meetings, they'll throw terms everywhere. It'll be like badminton. They'll be throwing terms left and right and all this stuff. And you'll be like, what are they saying? I mean, so I would honestly have to go like, time out.
Right.
Explain it to me as a third grader.
Right.
Because, I'm a computer programming professor by trade. So I can throw out, what does Java mean? What does this language mean? That's what I know. But if you start throwing that language out, parents don't know. So never be afraid, if you're a new parent, to say, time out, explain it to me. Because, a lot of these guys are experts, and, and not all, but even sometimes I don't think necessarily some of the parents or some of the schools want to deal with kids like this. And so that's another big thing, is realizing, never be afraid to ask, what does this mean? How does this benefit my kid? And bring an advocate in there who speaks the jargon, because these guys are, some of them, they've been doing this forever, and that's great. But if you're a new parent, it's all new. Ask someone, explain it to me in layman's terms, because of that. But because people don't know, man. They just don't know.
Right. Yeah. And I appreciate your information, Ken, because like I said, there's a lot of people that don't know. And some people, like, they just get pushed by the wayside, because it's like, well, we don't do that. You know what I'm saying? But in all actuality, you do that. So it's just like I said, it's just finding the right advocate to go and talk with you and just advocate for you. Now push it forward. What were some of the things that, you guys went through to get his niche in place, to get him where he is today? Like I said, we're going to touch on what he's doing now, but what are some of the things you put in place to help him develop into the kid he is now?
Well, one of the things that we did was that most people don't realize, especially when we're here in Pitt County in Greenville, North Carolina, finding the right school and finding the right place to sort of shepherd him or her, because autism is one of those things that impacts, it's more boys, but there are some girls that have to deal with it. You can find certain schools that are better when it comes to their programs and plans. We had a school in particular that both of my oldest kids went to, called D.H. Conley, which is here in Greenville. Well, through I guess we became real concerned, because when I looked at sort of the data, they had a real high suspension rate for kids with autism. because this is
Wow.
stuff that's published. It is. I mean, Conley had about a 25% higher suspension rate than compared to other schools.
Wow.
So we started investigating and found that there was another school that was much more smaller, that the principal, which was really good, the principal was a former special education teacher. I mean, and that was great. I mean, and there are other schools too where you see that, and
Right.
other schools like we you know, and I tell parents too to be the advocate, because you can really get your kids involved. We were lucky in that Jackson was at a school where the special education teacher was actually the football coach.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
he was awesome. And I mean, and we were able to sort of advocate to get him to go in typical classes. He was doing, you know, everything that would be conceived to be typical. And that coach was just such a super individual to actually help, you know, with his goals. But, you know, check out your schools. I tell parents, check out the teachers. I mean, you can go, you know, on a school's website, you can look at the teachers, and, you know, and I'll give the secrets away. I looked at the teachers' Facebook profiles. I looked at everything. Because,
Right.
you know, I'll say 1,000 times, my friend, parents and guardians, you are the best advocate for your kid. Don't be, you know, stubborn, you know, don't be too proud, you know, be that advocate and get out there and check everything out. And don't be afraid to ask any sort of questions, because some of the schools are good, but some of them,
I totally understand, and that was my experiences working with, you know, in the developmental disability field. Some schools, you know, they'll interact with you. When I go pick up the kid, they'll say, "Hey, you know, Johnny had a bad day. You know, Johnny did this today," and then some of them was just like, "Get him out of my sight," you know, you know, instead of let me know what I'm about to embark in when I'm picking him up from school, or, you know, or what his day was like. You know, it's just like you said, you could just kind of pick up the demeanor of the staff and just, you know, are they really interested, or they just say, "Hey, get this kid out of my sight," you know, so we get a day tomorrow, you know. But yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Now, did Jackson play any sports or anything, or he just kind of?
Well, this was funny. Was in middle school, he was a runner, and so he would get out and he would run cross country.
Oh, wow.
He is a little vertically challenged, which means he's short. So, you know, I guess Mom and I, we didn't necessarily want him to play football, even though, but it's funny. In middle school, sort of developed to where he is today, because he loved it. He loved sports, and you know, he would be. We had noticed even in middle school, he is always, even if he was on, he's always struggled a little bit when it comes to completing sentences, or a lot of sentences. But for some reason, and maybe it's part of the brain, man, is that when it came to doing play-by-play, or, you know, sort of mimicking, you know, sporting events, he would sound clear. He would sound just really, really focused.
Wow.
And so, you know, that was always a fascinating thing that sort of came to where he is today. Where even in middle school, you know, he would be, you know, he would be working with his special education teacher, who was the EBA cock football coach. He would be, you know, he'd be the minion, you know, grabbing water, grabbing footballs and all that stuff. But I could still see him if he comes to the bus, he's doing the play-by-play. I mean, you know, it was fascinating. So, you know, even at middle school, we were able to sort of maybe find his niche. That, you know, and that's the thing to tell parents out there. You know, your goal as a parent or a guardian is to, you know, even at that early age, is to help your kid find his niche, because we all have that little thing that we like to do. And, you know, and you can go, you know, and help your kid find that. It is. So he did play-by-play in middle school.
Oh wow. Okay, that was nice. That's cool. That's cool. Let's push forward a little bit, Ken. So this guy, I watched him. I think he interviewed Mike Hickman, former ECU football player, and a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, wow, this is this is awesome. So tell us a little bit of the name of his what he's doing now and the name of his show and everything, and give us a little insight on that.
Well, like everybody and like you, I had been home because of COVID.
Right.
And so for the past, few years, I would listen to him upstairs in his, he has the room of the garage. And so, he would always be doing play-by-play.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, man. We are not from San Antonio,
Mm-hmm.
but he's a huge Spurs fan since he was 12.
Oh, wow.
I can remember him with his, 12-year-old. He's got his Spurs hat on, watching, Kawhi play LeBron. And that was probably 14 or 15. But huge Spurs fan. So, we had been. I've been listening to this for years. So,
Mm-hmm.
I have a 22-year-old.
Right.
And the 22-year-old really in the last year had been trying to get me into podcasting because my 22-year-old's hip, he's cool. And, he'd say, Dad, you got to listen to podcasts, and he's telling me all these different things that he listened to. So, I'd gone to his mom and we were talking at dinner one time and I said, let's do something that Jackson likes to do because, when it comes to communicating, when it comes to writing or when it comes to, things like that, he's pretty good. But just if you met him here, he struggles sometimes a little bit when it comes to that stuff. So we came up with the idea of him doing a Facebook show, and it was called the Jackson Robol Show.
Okay.
And initially, it was going to be just really because this was probably last August.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, hey, would you? We've got family we've got family in Maryland. I've got brothers and sisters in Oklahoma. I've got in South Dakota, and so we said, hey, this will be a family thing. So he started, and he would do it all. He started reaching out to folks and asking if they could be interviewed. So that started from August to where he probably got maybe 50 people that were on Facebook that again are just family.
Right.
It's amazing, man. It's grown to where we're up to close to 900, and he's interviewed former players from Mike Hickman to the North Carolina Supreme Court Justice Paul Newby to Dalton Edger, which is offensive lineman for the Denver Broncos, to state senators, our local state senator Don Davis, and we, man, and to tell folks out there, we're just humbled and surprised and blessed that so many people have come on his show. And it's funny, man, because he's interviewed. He interviews everybody. I have to tell you though, when you're dealing with kids with autism, again, you've got folks, they don't necessarily understand boundaries. So dude, it was like 2 weeks ago. We have our kitchen where I'm downstairs working, and he's got the room over the garage. So I can hear him randomly calling people asking to be on his show.
Oh wow.
So he's calling, and of course everybody's got story. He was calling the guy at the local Denny's here in Greenville to ask if they would be on his show. And he's like, you want to be in my show? Yeah. Now, and I'd go up there, what are you doing? And it's like, he had gone through the Denny's manager to the Captain D's manager.
Wow.
So the point being is that we were lucky. We've gone to a point where now we're, we don't know where it would be in a year, but we're seeing, him doing something that he loves. Exactly. And he's serving a need. And it's funny. When we started, I had a couple friends say, especially do interviews with folks and special needs parents, because a lot of those folks don't really have an advocate.
No.
And so that's what just shocked me, man, is that, you know, he's talking to special needs parents who's, you know, have gone on to start business with their kids, because, you know, he's got, you know, parents from Pennsylvania to, you know, he's got parents to maybe are in Texas. And it's been really good on, you know, finding his niche, right, and being able to develop his own thing. His interviews are quick. That's what's always funny, is that a Jackson Robol interviews maybe 5 minutes.
Exactly.
But all the questions are, he's picked all the, you know, everything. He starts it out with his own little paper, and you know, it's a great example of what I would tell parents and guardians, is that even at a smaller age, don't ever be afraid to ask for help. Exactly. Try to find your kid's niche and try to encourage that, because we all have a blessing, we all have a niche, we all have a purpose. And don't ever, you are your best advocate for your son or daughter. And you know, find out everything you can and reach out and connect with other parents, because you know, you're your best advocate. And so, but it's called the Jackson Robol Show. He does an amazing job. I'm his producer. And he's got, you know, we went from nobody, you know, mainly family, to he's got 3 or 4 bands. He's got a guy named Kenyon Martin who's coming up, who's a former NBA player, who's an actor. He's got a woman who was a voice actor coming up and who was in Toy Story 4. And it's just been cool, man.
I mean, that's, you know, that's amazing, man. That's amazing. Yeah. And I've been following you guys since I found out, man. And like I said, you know, it's just a blessing to see him do it. And like I said, I'm going to keep supporting you guys and, you know, stay connected with you guys. We run a little short on time. You know, we coming up on the 30-minute mark, you know, but and look, my show is a little bit longer than 5. Hey, but look, Ken, you gave a wealth of knowledge today for people out here that's struggling, because you, like, you know what I always say, my motto is, you help one person, you did what you're supposed to do, you know, because sometimes it's not about the masses, it's about, sometimes it's just that one individual that you touched, you know, and I think today you helped someone, you know, that's just going through something, and I really appreciate that. Just like you said, shoot out the information for your son's show, and, you know, share your information, you know, how you guys need to be reached. So if someone, you know, wants to watch your show or whatever, just put that information out there.
He's on Spotify under the Jackson Robol Show, and he's also on Facebook called the Jackson Robol Show. Jackson Robol, Robol. But please check us out. He does all the work. I just make sure that he doesn't hit any sort of, you could say, barriers. But other than that, it's a great opportunity, and we appreciate, and I appreciate, brother, being on your show. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, man. Well, people, until next Saturday, I appreciate you guys listening. This is the Real Charlemagne signing out from the bricks. Talk to you soon.